A female CEO was enjoying breakfast with her son when they noticed a single father and his little boy walk in. To their surprise, they only ordered 1 cup of water to share. They looked exhausted and hungry. Without hesitation, the CEO's son asked his mom if they could share their food with them, and what happened next will leave you stunned. Before we dive deeper into this story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hype and subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. On a quiet Saturday morning in late autumn, Evelyn Hart stood by her kitchen island with a warm mug of coffee cupped in both hands. The house around her felt still, as if it were waiting for something. Pale sunlight pressed through the wide windows above the sink, touching the edges of the countertops and the framed photos on the walls. Her wedding picture, Max's first birthday, the Christmas they spent in Taos the year before her husband's illness started. The house always looked tidy. Too tidy, she sometimes thought. She had cleaned so much during those first months after losing her husband that it had become a habit, almost a shield. When her hands were busy, her mind had less room to wander. She scrolled through work emails on her tablet, though it was a weekend. Messages about contracts, new proposals, meeting schedules, numbers and deadlines, things that used to energize her felt heavier these days. She set the tablet down, rubbing the bridge of her nose. The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. At the table, 6-year-old Max was eating cereal, swinging his legs under his chair. He hummed an old tune he had picked up from a cartoon, a comforting little melody that rose and fell without rhythm. He glanced at his mother, waiting to see if she was truly paying attention. Evelyn lifted her eyes and smiled warmly. "Mom," he said, pushing a spoon through the milk. "Can we go somewhere today?" She blinked. "We are somewhere," he giggled, shaking his head. "I mean, somewhere fun, not your office." A tiny pinch tightened in her chest. She hadn't meant to make her office feel like a second home for him, but sometimes it happened. Too often, actually. "Yeah, buddy," she said softly. "We can do that. I think we could both use a little break." He perked up instantly, like a sunflower turning toward the sun. "Can we get pancakes?" "Let's see what we find." She ruffled his light brown hair, still warm from sleep. She finished her coffee, rinsed out the mug, and set it upside down to dry. Something in her relaxed. Maybe a slow day would do them both good. They grabbed jackets, his puffy blue one and her cream sweater, and stepped outside. The Santa Fe air greeted them, cool and clean, with a faint smell of juniper carried on the breeze. Fallen leaves skated along the driveway as they walked toward the SUV. Max hopped once before getting in, as if shaking off leftover energy from a dream. As she buckled her seatbelt, Evelyn felt a rare stillness inside. No meetings, no spreadsheets, just her little boy and an open morning. She started the car and they headed down Old Santa Fe Trail. The sky was a bright western blue streaked with thin clouds. The radio played an old country song, one her husband used to tap his fingers to on the steering wheel. The memory brushed her heart, gentle and unexpected. She let it sit with her a moment, the way you let a warm hand rest on yours. Max pressed his face to the window and whispered, "It looks like a painting out there." "It really does," she said, glancing at the golden hills and adobe homes tucked behind low fences. The world felt softer than it had in a long time. A few miles down the road, a small wooden sign came into view. Sunset Grill. It leaned slightly to the left as though tired of standing. The parking lot was half full. Evelyn slowed the car. "How about this place?" she asked. Max nodded, already reaching for his seatbelt. Inside, the diner smelled like warm syrup, fresh coffee, and cooked bacon. The bell above the door chimed as they entered. The waitress behind the counter gave a tired but friendly smile. The booths were worn, the vinyl cracked in places, but everything felt lived in and familiar. On the walls were framed black and white photos of old Santa Fe from decades earlier. Evelyn and Max were seated near the window. Their table had a slight wobble, so she steadied it with her foot. Max tapped his fingers against the glass, watching a truck pull into the lot. "Can I get chocolate pancakes?" he asked. "We'll look at the menu," she teased, but she knew she'd probably say yes. Saturdays were made for small indulgences. As they settled into the booth, the bell over the door chimed again. Evelyn glanced up. A man entered, moving carefully, almost as if he didn't want to draw attention. He wore a faded hoodie and jeans that had lost their color long ago. His shoes were dusty, the rubber worn thin. He looked like he hadn't slept well. Beside him was a little boy, maybe the same age as Max, holding his hand tightly. The boy's cheeks were pink from the cold. His hair was mussed. He stared at the tables the way a person looks at a crowd when unsure whether they belong. The man scanned the diner with hesitant eyes, then guided the boy to a small table in the back, half hidden by a pillar. He sat down slowly. When the waitress came by with a notepad, he swallowed hard. "Just water," he murmured. "For both of you?" she asked. He nodded quickly. "Yeah, water's fine." Evelyn felt something twist in her chest. She looked away, not wanting to stare, but she caught a glimpse of the boy lifting the menu with careful hands. He held it close to his face, studying the pictures with almost reverence. Max noticed too. Kids notice everything. The waitress brought Max his chocolate pancakes, a stack of them steaming and sprinkled with powdered sugar. He sliced into the first one with eagerness, but then his gaze drifted back toward the quiet table near the back. Something pulled at him. He set his fork down, looking troubled in the way small children sometimes do when they sense a wrongness too simple to ignore. He tugged lightly on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, that boy's hungry." Evelyn's heart squeezed. She followed his gaze. The man's shoulders were slightly hunched forward. The boy stared at the water glass as if hoping it would magically fill with something more. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "we don't know their situation." But she knew. She had seen that look in the boy's eyes before. Years ago, when her husband got sick and money grew tight, she had seen a version of that same quiet longing in Max's face. Before insurance kicked in, before she picked up extra work, before things turned around, she hadn't forgotten. Max pushed his plate a little toward the middle of the table. His voice was small, soft. "Can I give him some?" Evelyn looked at him, really looked. His earnest face, his eyes filled with simple concern. No judgment, no hesitation, just kindness. A warmth bloomed inside her chest, spreading slowly like sunlight across a cold room. "Yes," she said gently, "but let's do even better than that." She signaled the waitress, "Inaciopes," asked for 2 extra plates, and rose from her seat. Max followed, clutching the edge of his pancake plate like it was a treasure he hoped to share. They walked toward the man and the boy. The man noticed them approaching and straightened nervously. His hand tightened around the water glass. "Hi," Evelyn said softly. "I'm sorry to bother you. We're sitting over there, and my son noticed your little boy. Would you like to join us? We ordered too much food this morning." Her voice was calm, gentle, almost apologetic, not pitying, not patronizing. The man blinked, stunned. No, you don't have to do that." The boy looked between the adults, confused. His stomach growled softly, a small sound but unmistakable in the quiet corner. Max held out his plate. "You can have some of mine," he said to the boy. "I have chocolate pancakes. They're really good." Something flickered behind the man's eyes. Pain, pride, hesitation. His voice caught. I appreciate it," he whispered. "But it's just breakfast with new friends," Evelyn added. "Nothing else." She said it in such an easy, natural way that it felt true. The boy tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, can we?" The man looked down at him, then back at Evelyn. His shoulders slowly relaxed. "Okay," he said. "Thank you." He stood guiding his son. "I'm Daniel, and this is Eli." "I'm Evelyn," she said, "and this is Max." When they reached the table, the waitress added 2 sets of silverware without a word, her eyes soft with understanding. Evelyn ordered warm milk and a plate of tacos for Eli. The boy sat next to Max, holding the police car toy Max offered him like it was something precious. "Are you sure?" Eli whispered. Max grinned. "Yeah, I got lots. You can keep it." Eli's smile lit his whole face. As the tacos arrived, Eli began eating slowly, carefully, not wolfing it down, but savoring each bite as if he didn't want to waste the moment. Daniel sat across from Evelyn, hands clasped under the table. She noticed the faint tremble in his fingers. Sometimes it's the smallest details that speak the loudest. "So," she said gently, "do you two live nearby?" "Not far," Daniel said, keeping his voice steady. "A few miles south. I pick up odd jobs around the area, yard work, repairs, whatever folks need." Evelyn nodded. "That's good work. Important work." He shrugged slightly but said nothing. The boys giggled over the toy car, pushing it back and forth. The sound loosened something in the air. For a moment, Evelyn let herself enjoy the simple scene. 2 kids sharing a toy, the scent of warm food, the low hum of the diner. She felt more present than she had in weeks. Then the bill arrived. Daniel reached quickly for his wallet. "You don't need to," Evelyn started. "I should at least pay for ours," he said quietly, almost pleading. She placed a gentle hand over his. "Please, let me do this. Today is just a nice morning with some new friends. No strings." He hesitated, then slowly withdrew his hand. His eyes softened, though still cautious. After they finished eating, the group stepped outside into the crisp afternoon air. The parking lot shimmered in the sunlight. A few dried leaves skittered across the asphalt. Max and Eli stood a few feet away, talking excitedly about playgrounds and toy trucks. It took only one morning for them to fall into an easy friendship. Daniel shifted his weight nervously, hands in his pockets. "Thank you again," he said. "People don't usually do things like this." "Well," Evelyn answered softly, "maybe people should." He nodded, looking down, then back at her. "Eli had a good day. He doesn't get many like that." "Neither do we," she admitted. "Maybe we'll see you again." Daniel hesitated, the same conflict flickering behind his eyes, wanting connection, doubting he deserved it. "Maybe," he said. "We go to Memorial Park sometimes. The boys might run into each other." "We'll be there tomorrow afternoon," she said gently, giving him a small smile to show there was no pressure. He nodded again, swallowing hard. "We'll see." Max ran to her side. "Mom, can we see Eli again?" "We'll try, sweetheart." Daniel opened the door of his old car. He lifted Eli inside, careful not to bump his head. Before shutting the door, Eli looked over at Max and waved his new toy car in the air. "Bye, Max." "Bye," Max shouted back. Evelyn watched them drive away. As the old car turned onto the road, a soft ache rose inside her chest. A mixture of hope and something she didn't dare name yet. Something that felt like the first warm breeze at the end of winter. She buckled Max into the SUV, then slid into the driver's seat. Before starting the engine, she paused. What a morning, she thought. What a simple thing to share a meal. And yet it felt important. She watched the wind ripple through a tall juniper tree near the parking lot, the branches swaying gently. Max yawned in the back seat. "Mom?" "Yes, honey. I'm glad we came here." She looked at him in the mirror. His small face, full of uncomplicated goodness, reminded her why kindness mattered, why connection mattered, why she needed days like this to remember what kind of person she wanted to be. "Me too," she said softly. They pulled out of the lot, heading home on the long, open road. The sun rested low in the sky, warm and golden, lighting the path ahead. Behind them, the diner's bell chimed softly as another family entered, but the sound faded quickly. What lingered instead was the quiet promise of something beginning, something fragile and human sparked by a small act of kindness that felt larger than it seemed. That evening, after dinner, in a simple bedtime routine, Evelyn tucked Max into bed. He curled under his blanket, holding a stuffed bear that was once his father's gift. The glow from the nightlight shaped soft shadows across the room. "Mom," he whispered, rubbing his eyes. "Do you think Eli's okay?" "I think so," she said gently. "He has a good dad." "Daddy was a good dad too," Max murmured. "Yes," she whispered, brushing his hair. "He was." For a moment, the room felt heavy with memory. She remembered the smell of her husband's aftershave, the warmth of his voice, the way he would scoop Max up at the end of the day. Those memories hurt less now, but they still ached, like a bruise pressed gently. "You think Eli'll come tomorrow?" Max asked through a sleepy yawn. "I hope so," she said, but she wasn't sure. People like Daniel, she sensed, lived on the edge of disappearance. Life could push them away quickly. Jobs lost, moves forced, pride wounded. She didn't want them to vanish before she had a chance to know them better, but she also didn't want to intrude. She leaned down and kissed Max's forehead. "Good night, sweetheart." When she stepped out of his room and closed the door halfway, she stood in the hallway for a long moment, hands resting lightly on the frame. The house felt quiet again, but somehow different, like a small flame had been lit inside her without her noticing. Downstairs, the kitchen was dim except for the soft light over the stove. She poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. Through the window, the night sky was clear, sprinkled with stars. The town below was silent, save for the occasional sound of a car passing down the distant road. Her thoughts drifted to Daniel, his tired eyes, the hesitation in his voice, the care with which he guided Eli. She wondered how much weight he carried every day and how he found the strength to stand under it. She admired him for it. She felt something else too, a subtle pull, a quiet curiosity, a desire to understand him more. But she kept that feeling tucked away. Don't rush, she warned herself. Kindness is enough for now. The house ticked with settling sounds as she turned off the kitchen light. She climbed the stairs slowly, not wanting the day to end just yet. It had been a long time since something so simple had filled her with such quiet warmth. By the time she got into bed, the moon had risen above the rooftops. Its pale light traced soft lines across the ceiling. Evelyn lay on her back, hands folded on her stomach, listening to the stillness. Maybe tomorrow, she whispered into the dark. And with that small hope resting in her chest, she let sleep take her. The next day, she and Max did go to Memorial Park. They sat on a wooden bench near the playground, the breeze carrying the scent of damp leaves and pine. Max kept scanning the pathways, searching every face that passed. Evelyn tried not to look too eager, but her heart lifted whenever a father and son walked by. An hour passed, then another. Still no sign of Daniel or Eli. Children laughed, dogs barked, leaves tumbled, but she felt a small hollow forming inside her chest. She wasn't sure why the absence hurt so much, but it did. As the sun climbed higher, Max finally sighed and kicked at a small stone near his shoe. Maybe they forgot, he said. Maybe, she replied softly. But something inside her said it was more complicated than that. They stayed a while longer, and even though neither father nor son appeared that day, Evelyn kept glancing down the pathway, hoping, waiting. The breeze carried on, the leaves rustled, and the empty space beside her on the bench felt like a question she couldn't yet answer. Daniel woke before sunrise, long before the neighbors began stirring in the old apartment building. The sky outside his small bedroom window was still dark, a deep blue that promised morning, but hadn't quite reached it. The alarm on his phone buzzed softly at 5 o'clock a.m., though he was already awake. Sleep often came in thin layers for him. 5 hours on a good night, broken by worry or the sound of Eli's soft movements. He lay still for a moment, listening to the rustle of blankets from the small mattress near his own. Eli was curled in a tight bundle, clutching the police car Max had given him. Even in sleep, the boy's fingers wrapped around it like a lifeline. Daniel sat up carefully, rubbing his eyes. His back ached in that familiar way, a dull reminder of too many days lifting heavy things for too little pay. He stretched his arms above his head, joints popping. Then he stood, mindful of quiet, and walked barefoot toward the kitchenette. The apartment was always cold this early. The heater clicked on reluctantly, offering a thin stream of warmth. Daniel filled the old coffee maker with water, scooping grounds from a small canister that was almost empty. The scent of bitter coffee filled the space, comforting in a humble way. On the table sat a stack of envelopes, bills, rent notices, and one-letter warning of a rent increase coming next month. He placed a hand on top of the stack and sighed. One more week. Just get through one more week. He poured coffee into a chipped mug, the rim lined with a small crack that hadn't grown in months. He sat at the table, flipping through the scribbled list of jobs he hoped to take on that day. Cleaning out a garage, patching a fence, trimming a hedge. Half the jobs were written in pencil, marked with question marks. People called when they felt like it. Sometimes they forgot. Sometimes they told him they found someone else cheaper, even though he knew he couldn't lower his rates any further without skipping meals. He sipped his coffee, bitter but warm, and glanced toward the bedroom. Eli slept peacefully, his cheek pressed into the pillow in that innocent, trusting way children have. Daniel swallowed hard. You can't fail him. He's all you've got. A quiet knock echoed suddenly from the apartment next door. A neighbor heading out for an early shift, perhaps. Daniel listened to their footsteps fade down the stairwell. He stood and filled a small thermos with coffee, then packed a simple lunch for Eli. Peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, one juice box. For himself, he packed nothing. He would tell Eli later that he had eaten at work, and Eli would nod, believing him without question. The guilt of that lie always settled low in his chest. But what else could he do? Money stretched only so far. When things got tight, Daniel made sure Eli never felt it. That was his quiet promise. He washed his face, pulled on his hoodie and old jeans, and glanced once more at the sleeping boy before leaving for the first job of the day. The autumn sun was rising as Daniel reached the small house on Canyon Road where he'd been hired to repair a broken fence. The yard smelled of sagebrush and damp wood. He set his toolbox down on the gravel driveway and greeted the homeowner, a middle-aged woman in a thick sweater. "I'll get the materials," she said. "You just tell me what you need." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." As she walked off, Daniel knelt beside the fence, examining the broken planks. Cold air stung his fingers. He brushed dust from his knees and got to work. It was the kind of slow, physical labor that kept his mind somewhat calm, at least for a while. But around noon, hunger gnawed at him. He sat on the ground, pulling out his lunch bag. It contained only the apple slices and half the sandwich he had saved for Eli. He ate half of the half sandwich, then wrapped the rest again. He drank water from a plastic bottle. He'll never know, he reminded himself. That's how it should be. He's just a kid. From the house, he could hear a radio playing old country music, the same kind of music Evelyn had on in her car the day they met. That memory drifted in softly like a warm breeze through a cracked door. The diner, the smell of pancakes, Max's bright eyes, Evelyn's gentle voice. He had been suspicious at first. Why would a woman like her talk to him? But her kindness had felt real, natural, like she saw him, not the clothes, not the worn hands, but him. He shook the thought away, picked up his tools, and kept working. That afternoon, in a very different part of Santa Fe, Evelyn stood in the bright conference room of her firm. The large windows looked out over the city, sunlight reflecting off cars and rooftops below. Her team sat around the long table. Lawyers, project managers, the financial officer. They were discussing a development project that would replace a row of older apartments with new, high-end condos. This area is perfect for an upscale pivot. One manager said, "We can raise rents. The market will support it." Another chimed in, "We'll get higher returns with less maintenance costs. It's the smartest financial move." Someone joked lightly, "We might have to price out some of the riffraff, though." The room chuckled. Evelyn didn't. She stared at the spreadsheet projected on the wall. Rows of numbers, estimates, profit margins. It all looked orderly and clean, but something felt off. Her mind drifted to Daniel and Eli. She pictured Daniel's tired smile, his calloused hands. She imagined families like his being forced out of homes because of decisions made in rooms like this. How many Daniels have we moved out without even knowing their names? The thought unsettled her. She straightened, speaking clearly but calmly. "Let's slow down," she said. "People still need to live in these units. They're not just numbers." The room shifted. A few eyebrows rose. "Of course, Evelyn," someone said quickly. "We're just talking strategy." But she knew it wasn't just strategy. These were real lives. She leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of two worlds pulling at her. Her business world, where efficiency ruled, and the human world she had glimpsed again through Daniel and Eli. Sunday came cold and bright. Memorial Park glowed with golden leaves scattered across the grass. Families were out walking dogs, children laughing and shouting near the playground, someone tossing a frisbee in the distance. Evelyn and Max walked down the paved path, Max holding a small soccer ball under his arm. He scanned the park with hopeful eyes. "Do you think they'll come today?" he asked. "I hope so," Evelyn said. They sat on the familiar wooden bench. Max kicked the ball against his shoe, then let it roll a few feet before stopping it again. Evelyn watched families strolling by, some bundled in scarves, others sipping warm drinks. Everything felt gentle, but she caught herself glancing down the path every minute or so. Finally, after almost an hour, she noticed a figure walking toward them, tall, slightly hunched, wearing a faded hoodie. Beside him was a smaller figure holding his hand. Max jumped up. "Eli!" Eli's face brightened. He broke into a small run, his steps uneven but eager. Daniel slowed behind him, looking almost shy. Evelyn stood. "You made it." Daniel nodded, catching his breath. "Eli wouldn't let me off the hook." The boys immediately ran toward the playground, leaving the adults standing alone. Evelyn gestured toward the bench. "Sit with me?" "Sure," Daniel said quietly. They sat with a respectful few inches of space between them. The park's fountain gurgled nearby, filling the silence with gentle sound. Leaves rustled overhead, and a dog barked somewhere behind them. "How was your week?" Evelyn asked. "Busy," he said. "Jobs here and there, enough to keep me moving." She sensed he wasn't telling her everything, but she didn't push. "Max missed Eli," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, Eli talked about him a lot too." She nodded. "Kids make friends so easily." "Wish adults were more like that," he murmured. She glanced at him. His eyes were fixed on the boys. There was a softness there, a quiet love that made her chest ache. They talked only in small pieces. About the weather, about the kids, about how the days were getting shorter. He told her a little about the fence repair job, leaving out the part about skipping lunch. "Sounds like you're good with your hands," she said. "I try," he replied. "Hard to keep steady work, though. People hire when it's convenient." Evelyn hesitated before speaking. "Would you be open to getting more regular jobs? I know a couple of people who might need help with repairs." Daniel's shoulder tensed slightly. "I don't want—" "Not a handout," she said quickly. "Just a recommendation. I only give out names of people I trust." He considered that. His jaw tightened, then relaxed. He nodded slowly. "Okay, that would help. Thank you," she smiled. "I'll reach out to a few folks tonight." He swallowed, looking relieved and embarrassed all at once. "I appreciate it. Really." A breeze brushed past them, carrying the faint scent of pine. Their shoulders sat close, closer than before, but still careful. Evelyn glanced at him again and saw how tired he looked. She wondered how many nights he had stayed up worrying, how many meals he had skipped. A question pressed at her lips. "Are you okay?" But she held it back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She didn't want him to feel exposed. Over the next few weeks, it became a habit. Every Sunday afternoon, they met at Memorial Park. Sometimes Evelyn brought muffins by accident, claiming Max insisted on baking too many. Sometimes she brought fruit. Once, she brought a thermos of hot cocoa on a brisk day. She offered without making it seem like charity. Daniel always accepted slowly, with a mixture of gratitude and discomfort. One Sunday, she noticed holes in the soles of Eli's shoes. She didn't say anything, but the image stayed with her. Another Sunday, Daniel arrived quiet and pale. When Evelyn asked if he was all right, he gave a tired smile. "Just long days," he said. Max and Eli became inseparable, racing each other across the grass, climbing the playground ropes, sharing snacks. Evelyn and Daniel sat on the bench, talking more each week. She learned he was 32 but felt older. He had lost his wife shortly after Eli turned 2. A drunk driver, he told the story in a flat voice, eyes focused on the ground. "I'm sorry," Evelyn said softly. He nodded. "You never really recover. You just keep going because you have to." Something inside her tightened. She understood that more than he knew. One Sunday, clouds gathered and the sky grew dark. A sudden rainstorm hit, thick drops splashing onto the pavement. Families scattered for shelter. Evelyn grabbed Max's hand and hurried toward the parking lot. When she saw Daniel holding Eli under a thin jacket, she called out, "Come with us. We're parked right there." Daniel hesitated, water already dripping from his hair. "Your place isn't near ours." "We're going in your direction," she lied gently. He froze, then nodded. Inside the SUV, warmth enveloped them. The boys laughed at the sound of rain hitting the roof, drawing little shapes on the fogged-up windows with their fingers. Daniel sat quietly beside Evelyn, water dripping from his hoodie onto the floor mat. He looked uncomfortable, as if he worried about making a mess. "Relax," she said with a smile. "Seats can dry." He nodded but said nothing. His hands rested stiffly on his lap. "Do you ever let people take care of you?" she asked lightly. He let out a hollow laugh. "Does it look like it?" She didn't push further. The silence between them felt meaningful, not awkward. When she pulled up to his building, both boys groaned at the idea of going home. "Can Eli come over sometime?" Max asked eagerly. "Maybe," Daniel said, looking at Evelyn as if unsure. "Of course," she answered warmly. "Any time." Daniel opened the door, then paused. He looked at her, rain still dripping from his hairline. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for all of this." She didn't know what to say. The softness in his voice touched something deep inside her. "You're welcome," she whispered. He closed the door gently, as if trying not to disturb the moment. A week later, she extended the invitation that had been on her mind for days. They were leaving the park, evening lights softening across the grass. The boys were dragging their feet, not wanting the day to end. "Daniel," she said, stopping near her car, "would you and Eli like to come over for dinner next Saturday?" He froze. "Dinner?" "Yes, nothing fancy, just us and the kids. You don't have to bring anything." His eyes flickered with hesitation, pride, worry, and a hint of fear. "I don't know," he murmured. "Your place is different from ours." "So?" she said gently. "They're just walls. Dinner is dinner." His shoulders softened slightly. Eli tugged on his sleeve. "Can we, Dad? Can we go?" Daniel looked at his son, then at Evelyn. Something in his face eased. "Okay," he said. "We'll come." Back home, Daniel tucked Eli into bed. The boy was tired but glowing with excitement about the upcoming dinner. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing Eli's hair. "You had a good time today," he said. "Yeah," Eli murmured sleepily. "I like Max. And I like Miss Evelyn. She's nice." Daniel swallowed. "She is." Eli hugged his police car. "Do you like her, Dad?" Daniel froze. "I think so," he said finally. "She's kind." Eli smiled, eyes drifting closed. Daniel watched him sleep for a moment, then stood and stepped into the small living room. The dim light from the street lamp outside cast a soft glow across the floor. He sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He thought about the upcoming dinner, about stepping into Evelyn's world, a house that was probably twice the size of his apartment, with clean walls and warm lights and no chipped dishes. One dinner, he told himself, just one. Don't get used to it. But deep down, a small part of him wanted more, wanted warmth, wanted connection, wanted the simple comfort of talking to someone who saw him as more than a man scraping by. The truth scared him. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. What if this doesn't last? What if I'm just someone she's helping because she can? The thought pressed heavy against his ribcage. Still, he couldn't deny he was looking forward to Saturday. Saturday evening arrived, crisp and cool. Evelyn's home glowed softly from the inside, warm lights shining through the windows. She had cleaned more than necessary, not out of vanity, but nerves. She wanted Daniel and Eli to feel welcome, not overwhelmed. Max buzzed with excitement, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Are they here yet? Are they coming? What if they get lost? They'll be here soon, Evelyn assured him, smoothing her sweater and checking the table one last time. When the knock came, her heart jumped. She took a breath and opened the door. Daniel stood there, hands shoved into his sleeves, Eli's fingers gripping his father's. Both looked slightly shy, as though entering a world they weren't sure they belonged in. "Come in," she said warmly. They stepped inside. Eli's eyes widened at the open living room, the neat shelves, the smell of roasted chicken drifting from the kitchen. Daniel tried not to look impressed. "It smells good," he said quietly. "I'm glad," Evelyn replied. "Dinner won't be too fancy. I wanted it simple." "That's perfect," Daniel said, relieved. Max ran over and grabbed Eli's hand, dragging him toward the playroom. Daniel watched them go, a small but genuine smile forming. "He's really happy here." "I'm glad," she said. She led Daniel to the kitchen, offering him a seat at the island. He sat carefully, as though afraid to disturb anything. They talked, slowly at first, but soon more easily. She learned he had found new job leads from her friends. He learned her husband had been a kind man who loved cooking on weekends. They found common ground in grief, in parenthood, in wanting a simple, honest life for their kids. At one point, as she stirred gravy on the stove, he said softly, "I don't know why you're helping us the way you do." She paused, spoon hovering over the pot. "I'm not helping," she said gently. "I'm connecting, and it feels good." He stared at her for a long moment, unsure how to respond. But something softened in his expression, a quiet acceptance. Dinner went well. Simple chicken, mashed potatoes, steamed vegetables. The boys talked about school, toys, playground adventures. Daniel relaxed enough to laugh once, a sound so rare he almost startled himself. When they left that evening, Eli hugged Max goodbye. Daniel lingered a moment at the door. "Thank you," he said quietly. "This meant a lot." "It meant a lot to me, too," she replied. After they walked away, she stood by the window, watching them head down the dimly lit street. A gentle ache settled in her heart, warm, hopeful, and a little afraid. The night felt quiet, but not empty. Something was changing, something small, like a seed pushing through soil, and she felt it growing in both their lives. For several weeks after the dinner at Evelyn's house, a warm rhythm settled into the lives of both families. It was not loud or dramatic. It grew like a small flame that burned steady. Sunday park visits, brief text messages checking in, occasional lunches when schedules allowed. None of it seemed extraordinary on its own, yet together these simple moments stitched a fragile bond between them. Daniel began to rely on the new work he received through Evelyn's contacts. He never said it aloud, but he was grateful. His rent jar grew a little fuller. The fear of the next bill arriving loosened its grip, even if only a little. Evelyn found herself thinking often about Daniel's quiet expressions, the way he never asked for more than he needed, the soft way he guided Eli through the world. She admired his resilience. She also noticed he rarely relaxed, his shoulders always a little tense, as if bracing for the next bad thing. But in those weeks, something inside him did begin to soften, little by little. And that made what came next all the more painful. The day the two worlds collided began like any other. A cold wind swept across Santa Fe, carrying dust and the faint scent of distant rain. Daniel had taken on a job to clean and prepare a penthouse downtown that was going on the market soon. The building, 12 stories high, towered above most in the area. Its lobby glowed with polished marble and soft golden lights. Daniel walked in with his cleaning supplies, bucket, rags, mop, a small bag of tools. He wore his usual hoodie and jeans, the knees frayed from work. He felt out of place from the moment he stepped through the revolving doors. His boots squeaked on the shiny floor as he crossed to the service elevator. The manager, a tall man with sharp features, met him near the lift. "Penthouse level," the manager said quickly. "Try to finish today if you can. The owner's team is coming this afternoon." Daniel nodded. He didn't ask questions. He rarely did. When the elevator doors opened onto the top floor, he stepped into a space bathed in natural light. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city below, spreading roads, rooftops, small figures moving like dots. The sky above was a pale winter blue. The penthouse itself was beautiful, though cold. White walls, expensive furniture, a kitchen that looked untouched. Daniel set his supplies down and got to work. He wiped down countertops, cleaned the glass, swept the hardwood floors. Each movement was practiced and quiet. But as he knelt to scrub a corner of the floor, a memory surfaced. Evelyn's kitchen, warm lights, the smell of roasted chicken, her soft laugh, the boys playing in the next room. A sudden warmth filled his chest, then a sharp ache. He shook the memory away and kept scrubbing. Hours passed. His arms grew tired. He stood to stretch when he heard the distant sound of the elevator arriving. Voices followed, confident, fast, overlapping. He didn't think much of it until he heard her voice. Clear, firm, familiar. "We need to finalize everything by Friday. The buyer wants a clean close." Daniel froze. His heart kicked in his chest as the group rounded the corner into the living room. There she was, Evelyn, wearing a navy blue suit that fit her perfectly. Her hair was neatly pinned back. She held a folder in her hand, flipping it open as she spoke to a group of 4 others. He had seen Evelyn look polished before, but never like this. Never so distant, so precise, so powerful. She stood straighter, spoke sharper, moved with an authority that belonged to someone in control of everything around her. She looked like she belonged here. Daniel looked down at himself, kneeling, hoodie dirty, hands raw from scrubbing. He felt suddenly small, exposed, out of place in a way he hadn't felt in years. He held his breath. "Please don't see me," he thought. He moved backward slightly, trying to disappear behind the kitchen island, but she turned her head just enough, and their eyes met. Her face was first blank, mid-thought, then startled. Her expression softened instantly, her lips parting slightly, but Daniel didn't let her speak. He couldn't. He stood abruptly, knocking the cleaning rag from his hand. His heart hammered so hard he felt lightheaded. One of the real estate agents frowned. "Is everything all right?" Evelyn opened her mouth, stepping forward slightly. "Daniel?" "No, not like this. Not in this world of hers where he didn't belong." Daniel grabbed his bucket, his hand shaking. I need to go." "Daniel, wait!" She tried again. He was already walking away. He headed toward the stairwell, not the elevator, pushing through the heavy metal door and stepping into the concrete stairwell. He took the steps 2 at a time, breathing hard. The sound of his boots echoed through the stairwell. 12 floors felt endless, but he kept going. At floor 10, he slowed, leaning against the cold wall. His breath came in short bursts. A wave of humiliation washed over him. "You idiot! You thought she saw you, really saw you." His hands trembled. He stared at them, rough and cracked, the hands of someone who could never fit into her polished world. He rubbed his forehead, his throat burning. In the quiet stairwell, he whispered, "You don't belong there." Down the stairs he went, each step heavy and painful. When Daniel reached home hours later, Eli was coloring at the table, waiting with the small police car beside him. "Dad," the boy said, smiling, "you're home early." Daniel forced a smile, but his chest was tight. "Yeah, done for the day." "Did you see Miss Evelyn today?" Eli asked innocently. The words hit like a blow. "No," Daniel said sharply. Too sharply. Eli flinched slightly. Daniel closed his eyes and softened his tone. "No, buddy. Not today." He set his tools down, washed his hands at the sink, and stared at his reflection in the cracked mirror. His face looked older than 32. He saw the hurt in his own eyes and hated it. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Evelyn. "Daniel, can we talk? I didn't expect to see you there. Are you okay?" He stared at the screen for a full minute. Then he turned it face down on the table. When Eli asked if they were going to the park that Sunday, Daniel swallowed hard. "Not this week," he said. "Dad's got a lot of work." Eli's shoulders dropped, but he nodded quietly. 3 Sundays passed without them going to the park. Each Sunday, Evelyn sat on the same wooden bench, watching families play around her. Every time she saw a father and son walking toward the playground, her heart leapt, then fell when she realized it wasn't Daniel and Eli. Max asked every week, "Where's Eli? Did we do something wrong?" She didn't know how to answer. "Ain't you?" She left a few messages, gentle ones. "Are you all okay? Did I say or do something? We miss you two." But she received no replies. By the 3rd Sunday, she sat on the bench with her hands clasped in her lap, staring at the empty space beside her. The wind rustled through a nearby tree, sending a few leaves tumbling across the pathway. She felt something close to grief, a hollow ache she recognized far too well. That night, after putting Max to bed, Evelyn sat alone in her small home office. The lamplight cast a warm glow on her desk. Her phone lay on the surface, screen dark. She replayed the last few weeks in her mind. Had she pushed too hard? Had her world collided with his in a way that hurt him? What had she done wrong? Then she thought about her voice in the penthouse that day, firm, businesslike, discussing rent hikes and deadlines. She imagined how it must have sounded to someone like Daniel. How many people like him have I pushed out without knowing? The thought made her stomach twist. She stood from her desk and paced the room. Her breath came shallow. Finally, she picked up her phone. She didn't text him this time. She searched for the address he had scribbled on a scrap of paper weeks before, back when he fixed a loose railing at her house. She clenched the phone in her hand. "I have to try," she whispered. She wasn't sure if she was more afraid of losing him or realizing she had hurt him deeply. Either way, she knew she couldn't stay silent. The next afternoon, she buckled Max into the SUV. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To check on Eli and Daniel," she said gently. Max looked hopeful, almost relieved. "Did they get hurt?" "I don't think so," she said. "But sometimes grown-ups don't talk when they should." "Oh," he said, thinking hard. "Like when I break something by accident and don't want to tell you." She smiled faintly. "Something like that." As they drove through Daniel's neighborhood, the houses grew older, more worn. Front yards were patchy, fences crooked, cars sat on blocks or were covered in dust. Yet there was a sense of life. Children's bikes on porches, laundry hanging out to dry, neighbors chatting on steps. Evelyn parked by the curb and stepped out. Max followed, clutching the police car he brought, just in case Eli wanted to play. They walked up the stairs of the old apartment building. The hall smelled faintly of laundry detergent and something fried. She found the door. Apartment 2C. Her hand hovered over the wood for a moment before she knocked gently. There was a pause, a shuffling sound. Then the door opened a few inches. Daniel stood in the gap, hair slightly messy, dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired, guarded, bracing himself. When he saw her, his face stiffened. "Evelyn." "Hi," she said softly. "Can we talk?" He hesitated. She could see the conflict flashing through his eyes, part of him wanting to close the door, another part drawn to her presence. After a long moment, he stepped back and opened the door wider. Max rushed past him, greeting Eli with a bright smile. The boys quickly disappeared into the small bedroom. Daniel closed the door behind them and leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He looked at her, jaw tight. "You shouldn't have come." "I needed to," she said. "You stopped answering my messages. I didn't know why." He stared at her with a mixture of anger and hurt. "You really don't know?" She shook her head slowly, though fear swelled in her chest. Daniel exhaled sharply and walked a few steps away, running a hand over his face. He didn't speak right away. When he finally did, his voice was low and rough. "I saw you," he said. "At the penthouse." Evelyn froze. I was cleaning the place, he continued, pacing slightly, on my knees scrubbing your floors while you came in talking about deadlines and deals and raising prices like it was nothing. He looked at her, eyes burning, not with hatred but with humiliation. And I realized, he said, voice shaking, I'm just someone you help when it makes you feel good. Her breath caught. Daniel. No. He laughed once, short and bitter. Come on. You live in a world I don't even belong near, and I let myself forget that. I let myself think. He stopped, swallowing hard. It doesn't matter. She stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. It does matter. It matters to me. He shook his head, emotion tightening his throat. You didn't see me that day. Not really. You saw numbers, business, money. People like me get pushed out of homes because of decisions you make. Her eyes stung. You're right, she whispered. And I hate that I've been part of that. I hate that I hurt you without knowing. Daniel looked away, jaw clenched. I'm tired, Evelyn. I'm tired of trying to be enough. She took another step toward him. You are enough. He flinched as though the words struck him. I didn't pity you, she said quietly. Not for a second. I admire you. You work harder than anyone I know. You love your son fiercely. You show up every day, even when life keeps knocking you down. His eyes softened at the edges, but the shame still held him tight. Evelyn reached out, gently taking his hand. He didn't pull away. I don't care about money, she said. I don't care about status. I care about you. And I'm sorry I didn't show you that clearly enough. His chest rose and fell unevenly. He closed his eyes, the fight inside him fading little by little. When he opened them again, they glistened. You really mean that? He whispered. She nodded, tears gathering. I do. For a long moment, neither spoke. Their hands remained intertwined, fragile but warm. Then Daniel exhaled, a long, trembling breath he seemed to have been holding for years. I was so scared, he admitted softly. I kept thinking, you'll realize I'm not enough, that I don't belong next to you. She stepped even closer until their foreheads almost touched. You belong right here, she whispered. His hand slowly moved to her waist, uncertain at first, then firmer as he let himself believe her. Later, as Max and Eli played with the toy cars in the corner, Evelyn sat on the couch beside Daniel. He looked calmer now. The tension in his shoulders eased. She opened her purse and pulled out a small box. It's for Eli, she said. Nothing big. Daniel lifted the lid. Inside was a pair of sturdy new shoes. Simple, comfortable, meant for long days of running and play. He stared at them, speechless. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't expensive looking. It was exactly what Eli needed. His eyes softened with gratitude. You notice everything, he murmured. I just want to help in ways that don't hurt your pride, she said gently. He nodded, touched beyond words. Their fingers intertwined again. I'm sorry I pulled away, he whispered. I'm sorry I hurt you, she replied. They leaned into each other, resting in a quiet, healing stillness. Months passed. Winter melted into early spring. The Sundays at Memorial Park resumed, each one warmer and brighter than the last. Daniel's work stabilized. He found a steadier schedule, regular clients. He slept a little better at night. Evelyn began reshaping parts of her work life too, pushing for more responsible decisions, arguing against aggressive rent hikes, small wins but meaningful ones. Their worlds didn't merge seamlessly. It was slow and sometimes awkward, but they moved toward each other with steady hearts. One warm spring afternoon, as they sat under the big tree at Memorial Park, Evelyn told Daniel something she had never said aloud. After my husband died, she said quietly, watching the boys run across the grass, I thought I was done. I thought my heart had closed. Daniel turned to her, his expression soft. But you, she continued, you and Eli. You brought something back, something warm, something I thought I lost. He swallowed hard. I was scared at first, scared this wasn't real. She smiled gently. It's real. He nodded. Me too, he said. I think I'm in love with you. Her breath caught. Then she touched his cheek. I love you too, she whispered. They kissed softly. No drama, no spectacle, just two tired hearts finding rest in each other. And the world, for a moment, felt perfectly still. The warmth of spring settled over Santa Fe with the kind of quiet gentleness that made people want to linger outdoors. Each day grew a little longer, Each breeze a little softer, flowers began pushing their first bright colors through the thawing ground. For both families, life found a steady rhythm again, one built from small kindnesses and shared moments. But though the rhythm felt steady, there were still tender places left inside Daniel and Evelyn. Wounds did not heal overnight. They healed like new grass, slow, delicate, needing light and patience. Sunday afternoons at Memorial Park became something like a ritual. Children chased each other across the playground. Dogs wandered by with wagging tails. Elderly couples walked arm in arm along the paved paths. The air carried laughter, small talk, and the scent of pine from the nearby trees. One Sunday, Daniel arrived a little late, Eli tugging eagerly at his hand. When they reached the familiar bench, Max was already perched on top of it, balancing carefully with one foot and waving at them. "Eli, you're here!" he shouted, nearly losing his balance in excitement. Eli sprinted forward, the new shoes Evelyn had given him thumping lightly on the ground. The boys ran toward the playground without hesitation. Daniel approached the bench. Evelyn sat in her usual spot, sunlight brushed across her hair. "You look tired," she said gently as he sat beside her. "Uh-huh." Daniel chuckled. "Long week, lots of jobs." She nodded, studying him. His hands were rougher, his jeans dirtier, but his eyes carried a steadier calm than when she first met him. "Still," she said, tilting her head, "I'm glad you're here." He relaxed into the warmth of her words. Their shoulders brushed. "How was your week?" he asked. Evelyn let out a slow breath. "Full. Meetings, emails, people arguing over budgets." He glanced at her. "Still pushing back on those rent hikes?" "Trying," she said. "Not everyone listens, but some do." He watched the boys playing for a moment. Then softly he said, "Thank you for trying." Her eyes warmed. "It's the least I can do." For a while they sat in comfortable silence. The boys shouted happily, climbing a small hill near the trees. A gentle breeze brushed their faces. Evelyn's hand rested between them on the bench. "Oich." Daniel's fingers inched closer until they touched lightly. He didn't pull away this time, neither did she. Later that afternoon, as the sun stretched long shadows across the park, Eli stumbled on a small rock while running. He dropped to his knees, scraping the skin just above his ankle. His face tightened, tears welling, though he tried to blink them back. Evelyn reached him first, kneeling beside him in the grass. "Hey, sweetheart," she murmured, brushing dirt from his leg. "It's okay. Let me see." She pulled a small first aid pouch from her purse. She had started carrying one after the fall he'd taken months ago. She dabbed the scrape gently with a wet wipe. Daniel watched her from a few steps away, something softening deep in his chest. The careful way she tended to Eli, the soothing sound of her voice, the genuine concern on her face. It touched him more than he could say. "You're very brave," she told Eli. "Just a little scrape. You'll be running again in no time." Eli sniffed. "It stings." "I know." She placed a small bandage on the scrape, smoothing the edges. "All better." Then she looked up at Daniel, a small smile tugging at her lips. "He's okay." Daniel nodded. "Thank you." That evening, after they said goodbye, Daniel carried that image with him, the way she cared for his son as if he were her own. It settled deep inside him, warming something that had grown cold from years of loneliness. As spring turned into early summer, subtle changes continued. Daniel grew more confident in his work. He took on small renovation projects, repaired decks, painted fences, replaced broken fixtures in older homes. Clients recommended him to friends. His schedule filled in ways he had never imagined before. He learned to breathe a little easier when he opened his wallet. Evelyn, in her own world, changed too. She pushed her company toward more humane choices, refusing to raise rents beyond modest levels, encouraging maintenance improvements in lower income units, meeting with tenants face-to-face instead of relying solely on reports. Her colleagues noticed. Some admired her, others complained, but she didn't bend this time. She had seen the human cost, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. One evening, after a particularly long meeting, she sat in her office staring at the skyline. The memory of Daniel in the penthouse, a painful memory, came back. She understood now how her two worlds had collided. She also understood that change had to start with her. Kindness is not a luxury, she thought. It's a responsibility. One warm Saturday, she invited Daniel and Eli over for a backyard cookout. Max scattered toys across the grass, planning elaborate games for the afternoon. Evelyn brought out burgers, corn on the cob, and lemonade. Daniel volunteered to grill. He seemed more relaxed in her backyard than he had been months earlier, though occasionally he still looked around with caution, as if checking whether he truly belonged. "You know you don't have to do that," she said gently as he seasoned the burgers. "I like helping," he answered. "Feels normal." She smiled. Normal is good. As he worked over the grill, she watched him quietly. His easy concentration, the way the smoke curled around his shoulders, the sunlight glinting off the edge of his jaw. He felt present, grounded, a part of this space in a way that didn't look forced. The boys played with water balloons, shrieking with laughter when one burst on Max's shoe. "What did I tell you?" Evelyn called teasingly. "Not near the grill." "Sorry, Mom," Max shouted back, though clearly not sorry at all. Daniel chuckled, flipping a burger. "They're wild. They're happy," she said softly. He glanced at her. "Yeah, they are." Dinner was simple and warm. The boys ate while sitting on an old picnic blanket. Daniel and Evelyn sat at the patio table, talking between bites, feeling the kind of ease that only grew with familiarity. Later, while the boys played tag near the trees, Evelyn brought out 2 glasses of iced tea and placed one in front of Daniel. He took it, nodding. "Thanks." She sat beside him. "You know," she said quietly, "I was thinking earlier, I don't want to lose this. Any of this. You and Eli, you mean a lot to us." Daniel looked down at his hands, tracing the ridge of his knuckles. "I don't want to lose this either." He hesitated. "I'm just still learning how to let someone in." "I know," she whispered, "and I'm not going anywhere." He reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally. In the background, the boys laughed and shouted, chasing each other across the lawn. Evelyn and Daniel sat watching them, 2 tired souls who had found each other in a messy, complicated world. And the world felt soft. Summer continued with its slow, warm rhythm. One evening, a thunderstorm rolled in suddenly, clouds darkening the sky. Lightning flickered behind the hills, followed by distant rumbling. Daniel and Eli arrived at Evelyn's house just as raindrops began to fall, thick and cold. "Perfect timing," she said, ushering them inside. The storm grew strong quickly. Rain pounded the roof. Wind rattled the windows. The boys sat on the couch building a fort out of pillows, their excited squeals drowning out the storm's growl. Evelyn brewed hot chocolate for everyone. She handed mugs to Daniel and Eli, then sat beside Daniel on the couch while the boys played. The room felt especially warm with the storm roaring outside, the kind of warmth that sank into the bones. "I used to be afraid of storms," Daniel said quietly, holding his mug carefully. "What changed?" Evelyn asked. "Eli was born," he said. "I realized I didn't have time to be scared of the weather. I just had to look strong for him." She watched him, admiration settling in her chest. "You've done so much for him." "He's all I've got," he replied. "I can't afford to let him down." "You haven't," she said firmly. A crack of thunder shook the house. Daniel flinched slightly, then glanced toward the boys. "They're fine," Evelyn reassured him. "Storm isn't bothering them one bit." "Kids," he muttered with a smile. "Braver than us." She leaned her head gently on his shoulder. "Sometimes they are." He exhaled slowly, relaxing into her touch. Not long after the stormy night, the 4 of them returned to Memorial Park. It was a clear, crisp day with plenty of sunshine. Families gathered for picnics, children chasing bubbles, seniors sitting on benches feeding squirrels. Evelyn watched Max and Eli racing across the open grass. She felt something soft inside her chest, a sense of belonging that surprised her. She turned to Daniel, who was sitting beside her on the park bench. "How's work this week?" she asked. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Busy, but in a good way." "Still taking on too much?" He smiled. "Maybe." She nudged him lightly. "You don't have to prove anything to me." "I know." He looked down at his hands. "Sometimes I still feel like I do." She laid her hand over his. "You're doing great, Daniel." He nodded, a little embarrassed, but grateful. They sat quietly for a long moment, watching the boys chase a soccer ball. Max tripped, then popped back up. Eli pretended to fall dramatically, making Max burst into laughter. "Look at them," Daniel said softly. "You'd think they've known each other forever." "In a way," she said. "They have." The breeze rustled through the leaves above them. A dog barked in the distance. A nearby couple talked softly, their hands intertwined. Sometimes, Evelyn said, her voice low, I think kindness saved us. Daniel turned to her. How do you mean? She gazed at the boys. If Max hadn't asked to share his pancakes that morning, if I hadn't listened, this never would have happened. He nodded thoughtfully. It's strange, isn't it? Little moments changing lives. She smiled. Strange and beautiful. He looked at her, his eyes softening. Evelyn, I need to say something. She met his gaze. For a long time, he began, voice thick with emotion. I thought I didn't deserve good things. I thought life had already given me what little it could. And then you and Max came along. And Eli, he's happier than I've ever seen him. And I feel... He paused, struggling for words. I feel like we're finally building something good again. Her heart warmed. We are. He swallowed hard, then whispered, I love you. The words hung in the air, honest and tender. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from a release of something she had carried quietly for too long. I love you too, she whispered back, their hands intertwined, gentle and certain. 6 months after the day she knocked on Daniel's door, they returned to the very first place their paths had crossed, the Sunset Grill. It was Evelyn's idea. I thought it would be nice, she said, to go back to where it all started. Daniel hesitated at first. The memory of their first meeting at the diner was tender but raw. But when he saw the excitement in Eli's face and the nostalgia in Evelyn's eyes, he agreed. They arrived on a warm afternoon. The familiar bell chimed when the door opened. The same servers worked there, though a few new faces appeared too. The smell of bacon and coffee was just as he remembered. They slid into the same booth where Evelyn and Max had first sat. The boys sat beside each other again, as if no time had passed at all. A waitress approached. Good afternoon. Can I get you folks started with something to drink? Water, Daniel said automatically, but Evelyn touched his hand gently. Get whatever you want today. He hesitated, then nodded. Coffee, please. I'll take the same, she said. The boys ordered chocolate pancakes to share. As they waited, Daniel looked around, remembering that day so vividly. The worry in his stomach, the shame of only ordering water for Eli, the way Max's small kindness broke through his pride. He looked at Evelyn. Her face glowed in the soft diner light. I was terrified that day, he admitted quietly. She took his hand. I know. And you still came over to talk to us. She smiled. I'm glad I did. When the food arrived, Eli reached across the table, touching Evelyn's wrist. Miss Evelyn, thank you. For what, sweetheart? She asked gently. For helping my dad, he said. For helping us. Her eyes softened. You two helped us too. Daniel looked at his son, then at Evelyn, and felt something inside him settle, a kind of peace he had been chasing for years. One late summer evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with soft pinks and oranges, Evelyn and Daniel stood on the porch of her home. Max and Eli played in the yard, kicking a ball back and forth. The air was warm, carrying the smell of cut grass and distant barbecue smoke from a neighbor's yard. Daniel leaned against the railing, watching the boys. You know, he said quietly, I used to think families were something other people had, something I lost. Evelyn stepped beside him. Families can be made, not just born. He looked at her, emotion filling his eyes. I never thought I'd get another chance. You deserve one, she whispered. A soft silence passed between them. Then he reached for her hand. Evelyn, he said, steady and sure this time. I'm ready. For all of it. For us. She squeezed his hand. So am I. They stood there together, watching their boys laugh under the evening sky. Two once lonely families, now one. Not perfect, not magical, but real, strong, full of small kindnesses that had changed everything. The light faded slowly, but the warmth lingered long after, and as night settled gently across Santa Fe, the sound of the boys' laughter drifted through the air, a sound that promised hope, healing, and the beginning of a new life together.